Hey, I'm Josh. I think you guys know me by now, so I'm not going to give a whole lot of introduction here. I help with care, I counsel people, and I'm connected to probably quite a few of you at this point. In lieu of an introduction, I thought I'd just share one of the deepest parts of who I am with you. I've often stated that I think the most underappreciated form of social media is a platform called Nextdoor, and specifically in my neighborhood, Nextdoor Snohomish, okay? I have social media. I don't use it for its intended purpose though, right? I don't like post much. I don't really follow content. My sole use of social media at this point is to share with the world the absolute joy that I get from posts on Nextdoor Snohomish. And I've said this before, but Nextdoor Snohomish, it's like the hostility and volatility of a vaccine debate on Facebook, but all involving animals. There is all the time animal issues in Snohomish County, and I've said it, but now I get to prove it to you, because I'm going to share some of these with you, okay? I don't know of the ethical ramifications of slaying people from the pulpit on Nextdoor, but we're mostly talking about animals, so I hope it's okay. Okay, let me show you some of these, okay? Number one, okay? Hi, I have a family of 5 large raccoons living near my home. They race across my roof and yard at night, and I'm actually scared to go to my backyard at night. They literally look like a gang of bullies walking around at night. They surrounded my dog, and I'm sure they would have attacked. 2, this is one of my favorites. Found pig. I just found this girl coming up the driveway. I've got it trapped in my garage. Please come get here at my address. She's covered in mud. Please hurry. Okay, number 3, more raccoon drama. Raccoon drama on Grade Road this morning. I heard a car honking, little dogs barking, and what sounded like raccoons fighting this morning outside my house. I let my Great Dane outside, and I caught him walking around casually with a live raccoon head in his mouth. I made him drop the raccoon, and it slowly skipped away. I'm wondering if anyone saw what happened beforehand. That was the purpose of the post. Did anyone see what happened beforehand? Number 4, anyone missing a goose? An obviously domesticated goose showed up in our front yard today. Very domesticated. It is very tame. My son picked it up, and now it's following him around the yard. Okay, number 5, cow loose. Okay, so when I posted this one, I immediately received a message from a friend who was like, oh, I saw that cow running down Highway 9. It actually belongs to my friend Jeff. It's like Snohomish life right here. Next, lost lamb. Last night, our son's school project, a lamb for the Evergreen Livestock Show, ran away. This happens all the time. And they did not end up finding this lamb. Sadness. There's P.S. I'm not showing you the fights. There's constant fights. I just don't really want to slay people right from the pulpit. But the absolute love of animals who should never be harmed, and the amount of gun ownership somehow colliding in Snohomish County is actually where the conflict's at. Okay, last one I'll share with you, okay? Danny wrote this, and he was asking, has anyone else been woken up for the last several weeks at the crack of dawn by the rooster near 35th and 169th? Now, when I saw this, it had just been posted, and there's already 32 comments, and they all say the exact same thing. Danny, if you cannot appreciate a rooster waking you up, which is the best of life, get out of Snohomish. So, this is top shelf content. Thank you. I love you, Snohomish. I love you Nextdoor. Now you know so much of who I am. So, I haven't mentioned it but yes, I am in a power boot here. I'm in a boot, and you're all going to ask, so I get to do this in one fell swoop. Yes, I broke my foot getting up from the couch. Got up from the couch, and I walked across the room, and I broke my foot. I didn't do it CrossFitting. I know some of you were ready to slay me. Last time I got injured, everyone was like, CrossFit, I told you. Not CrossFitting, not jump training that I did the day before. I got up, and I broke my foot. My actual version of what happened is this. I started writing a sermon on slowing down, and God broke my foot. That's my actual understanding of this whole situation right here, which is what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about slowing down. Now, last fall in October, I talked about prayer, and today I'm going to talk about slowing down. So apparently, I'm only interested in preaching on things of which I'm absolutely terrible at. And actually, last spring, I spoke on how to listen well, and every time I do, I always tell people, if only my wife could be in the room right now, she'd be laughing or crying, one of the two. But my interest in this subject is exactly that. It's that this is something I long for, I get glimpses of in my life, and I'm really not good at. I have a personal stake in this, and that's that I want it, and I'm trying to learn it. And I hope you'll just begin that with me this morning. And I'm particularly excited because, hey, it's January, right? It's the beginning of the year. This is when we sign up for everything, right? We set goals beyond our limits. We absolutely say we're going to be in the gym every day. We sign up for our kids for all these things. This is a good moment to just be asking ourselves, what is my pace of life? Where is my time going? And better yet, is it what I want my time to go to? Okay, so today I want to talk about hurry. And I'm just going to talk about three things, which is how did we get so hurried? What is hurry doing to our souls? And what does this have to do with following Jesus? Just those three real quick. Now, I want to do something just where you're sitting. I've done this before. You made it here. Great job. I don't see that as a small task. And I know some of you passed through the flames of stress this morning. And then you came into this space, and you're supposed to be fine, centered, ready to listen. I would love to just take a moment to even just slow ourselves down. And you can do that what I'm suggesting here is that maybe you came into this room with feelings. Maybe you're having feelings right now. And I'd love for us to actually know what that is. And you can do that by really just relaxing your face and your shoulders, which are two places we carry a ton of tension and don't know it. Put your feet flat on the floor, and maybe just take a deep breath with me real quick. Oh, it's so good. Let's take another one. And maybe just be aware of what am I feeling right now? You know, if I had to guess, just based on the last 3 years of self-report of millions of Americans and the amount of counseling I do with clients who sit across from me, I would guess the most common answer to that question is stressed. I feel stressed. And I want to convince you, although I probably don't have to, is that we're all by nature too busy. We even say this when people ask how we are. How are you? I'm good, just busy. It's very common. So this morning I want to help us just examine that a little bit with those questions, okay? And I want to convince you that hurry is bad. That hurry is at the root of so many issues within us and in our world. Corrie ten Boom said this: if the devil cannot make you bad, he'll make you busy. Carl Jung, the famed psychologist, said this: hurry is not of the devil, hurry is the devil. And the fact is that normal people like you and me, we're just too busy to have emotionally healthy lives or to have spiritually vibrant lives. A guy named Michael Zigarelli, he did a study, 20,000 people across all nations in the world. He was specifically going after what are the obstacles of growth in people who claim to be Christians? What's stopping them from growing? And after all of his findings, this was essentially his summation, okay? It may be the case that, one, Christians are assimilating to a culture of busyness, hurry, overload, which leads to, two, God becoming more marginalized in Christians' lives, which leads to, three, a deteriorating relationship with God, which leads to, four, Christians becoming even more vulnerable to secular assumptions regarding how to live, which leads to, lastly, more conformity to a culture of busyness, hurry, and overload. That's what we're talking about. So I think we all are going to fit in here somewhere. So I want to, first of all, relieve you of shame. Okay, this isn't to shame you. I hope they actually have relief and have ideas for how to have love, joy, and peace, which is what Jesus is actually going at in your life. That's what he's going for. He wants to sow deeply in the soil of your life love, joy, and peace. Let's just talk about that. What does God want? This really clarifying moment where Jesus is asked, what is the greatest commandment? Which is a way of saying, someone asked him, what is the most important thing, Jesus? And he answers is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and strength. And then secondly is to love your neighbor. So Jesus' answer is to love God. He wants to sow love in you. But the problem is that love and hurry are totally incompatible. They do not work together. Love is slow. Any of you who have been in long-term relationships, any of you who are married or have a boyfriend, girlfriend, or who have kids, you know that to love is to be slow. That hurry is incompatible. I mean, just think of the times when you're behind, when you're overloaded, or myself, when I'm overscheduled or I'm late for something. I am my worst version of myself. I ooze tension and agitation, right, in these moments, and that's because hurry and love are incompatible. Uh, this is what Jesus is after: love, joy, and peace. And I wonder for how many of us we need to hear what Jesus said to Martha in the midst of her busyness. You are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed. Indeed, only one. And so with this in mind, let's just talk about how busy and how hurried we are and how we got here. Now, it's no surprise, no mystery that our world has sped up. When you think about sleep, okay, before Thomas Edison invented the night bulb and we invaded the dark, humans used to get on average 11 hours of sleep a night. Can you imagine 11 hours of sleep, right? Can our bodies even do that anymore? The average now is less than 7, right? That's more than 3 hours difference per night of sleep. I could say so much about sleep here, I just don't have time. My family loves Little House on the Prairie, and this is what I want to talk about next. It's just we have more time than we've ever had. Little House on the Prairie, we love that my daughter's going to start listening to it again here. She showed me last night. If you lived in the 1800s and you wanted to get warm, right, you had to go into the woods, chop down a tree with your bare hands, drag it back to your cabin, chop it up into smaller pieces, again with your bare hands, right, build a fire in order to heat a corner of your dwelling, okay? What is it now if we need heat, if we want to get warm? Thank you, thermostat. I just go push a couple buttons. Or if you're at my house, there's a light switch for the fire. So you turn it on, it's magic, right? And that's just one example of a time-saving, a labor-saving device, right? We have so much more, right? Cars, you think about, we used to handwrite all of our letters, and now it's instantaneous texting and emailing. My Gmail has scripts for me now. I don't even have to type responses, right? You just click and it says, thanks for telling me, you know. It's wild. It's meant to be time-saving. Despite these devices, which have saved us so many hours, the experience of people is that they have no time. Why is that? How could that be? And the real question is where did all that time go? We got hours back. I don't have to spend 25% of my day figuring out how I'm going to fire at night. Where did all that time go? And the answer is that it went to other things. Because we are chronic time fillers, and our world has unlimited offers, and now it's interruptions. Invading your space to take your time and attention. Let's talk about work. Past political theorists and sci-fi writers, they actually speculated that by now we'd be working way less, okay? One famous Senate subcommittee in 1967 thought that by 1985, the average American would only work 22 hours a week for 27 weeks a year. They actually thought the problem in our world, in the Western world, was going to be too much leisure. The only people who have achieved some semblance of this is the French, who we make fun of, right? Which I can say I'm actually somewhat French. Loy, my last name is actually Loy, okay, which is how I justify my relationship with cheese at present. But in reality, the exact opposite has happened to us. We work more than we ever have. The average American right now works 4 more weeks per year than they did in 1979. And there's so many more examples of it, but it all climaxed in 2007, okay, which has an event that's kind of on par with 1440. In 1440, Gutenberg invents the printing press, huge game changer, because the distribution of information changed, and that's how the Enlightenment spread across Europe and really changed the world. And in 2007, something also big happened. Steve Jobs released the iPhone. It was also a few months after Facebook became public. It was the year a microblogging app called Twitter became its own platform. It was year 1 of the cloud in the App Store, and a few other big things that really caused 2007 to be called the true start of the digital age. And then came our smartphones. All right, no shame in the smartphone discussion here, okay, people? A recent study showed that the average person touches their iPhone more than 2,600 times a day. Another study put millennials at twice that amount. Token millennial jab there. Too many of you are nodding right now. Get him, Josh. To be fair, I'm also a millennial, all right? I'm an elder millennial. Okay, but a trend in these phone studies, respect your elders. A trend in these phone studies is that users don't even realize how much time they've spent. It warps your experience of time. All right, a similar study, this one was big, found that just being in the same room as our phones, even when they're turned off, quote, reduces one's attention dramatically and problem-solving skills. The translation is your phone makes you dumber even when it's off, right? and no shame here, but here's the thing, and I could labor time here, but essentially the world now and your phone and most things on our phones, they're after one thing, and it's a new economy of attention. It's after our attention. That's what it's designed for. Sean Parker, who was the first president of Facebook, who now calls himself a conscientious objector to social media, he says this: the thought process that went into building these applications was all about how can we consume as much of your time and conscious attention as possible. And what that means is we need to find how we can give you dopamine every once in a while. Exactly the type of thing a hacker like me would come up with, because it's all about exploiting a vulnerability in human psychology. Okay? Now, why am I saying this? We're in a revolution that is trying to take your attention. It's about attention control, and it's a huge ingredient to our busyness, to our stress. Microsoft researcher Linda Stone said this: continual partial attention is the new normal. Do you think this is affecting your relationships? Do you think that this is affecting your parenting, your ability to be a husband or wife or in a relationship? Do you think that this is affecting your relationship with God? Surely the answer is yes, right? And the answer here is not to go back to the dark ages, right? It's like, who wants to die of gout, right? It's like, who wants to live by candlelight starting at 3:30 p.m. in the Pacific Northwest, right? I don't want, the answer is not to shun our technology or go back, right? But as people and as Christians, we have to appraise any technology that comes into our hands. Is this giving me life? Is this enhancing my relationships? Is this leading to love, joy, and peace in my life? Is this changing me? Now, what is this all doing to us? Let's talk about what it's doing to us, okay? Right now, I just want to lovingly convince you that you have anxiety. I do this a lot as a counselor. A lot of what I'm talking about right now is from a book, okay, none of it's original, that I love, called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, which was aligned by Dallas Willard, right, who is known for his really expertise in discipleship, what it means to apprentice Jesus. But in that book, there's a new term for our experience of the world right now called hurry sickness. It's when we're going too fast, okay? It's our experience of the world as being too busy, okay? And these are, what I want to do is I want to read to you the 10 symptoms of hurry sickness. Now, here's the definition of hurry sickness, okay? A behavior pattern characterized by continual rushing or anxiousness. Another, a malaise in which a person feels chronically short of time and so tends to multitask to the point of forgetting one of the tasks. Anyone feeling this right now? All right, P.S. that was coined in the 1950s, that term. Okay, we're in a totally different world now. I'm going to go through these 10 symptoms, and I want you to just take some inventory. How many of these are true for you? You can have score 1 through 10. No shame here, but take a count here. I want to know how many you have, okay? Number 1, irritability, okay? You get mad, frustrated, or just annoyed too easily. Little things irk you. People have to tiptoe around your ongoing low-grade negativity, if not anger. And for this, don't look at how you treat a colleague. Look at how you treat your closest relationships, like a roommate or a spouse or your children. Number 2, hypersensitivity. All it takes is a minor comment to hurt your feelings, a grumpy email to set you off, or a little turn of events to throw you into an emotional funk. Minor things quickly escalate to major emotional issues. Ordinary problems on this side of life have a disproportionate effect to your emotional well-being. Number 3, restlessness. When you actually try to slow down and rest, you cannot relax. You give Sabbath a try and you hate it. You read scripture, but you find it boring. You have a quiet time with God, but you cannot focus your mind. You go to bed early, but you toss and turn with anxiety. You watch TV, but you simultaneously check your phone. Who's with me? You fold laundry, but you also answer your email. Number 4, workaholism, or just nonstop activity. You just don't know when to stop, or worse, you can't stop. Your drugs of choice are accomplishment and accumulation. This could show up as careerism, or just obsessive house cleaning or running errands. Number 5, emotional numbness. You just don't have the capacity to feel someone else's pain, or your own pain for that matter. Empathy is a rare feeling for you. You just don't have time for it. Number 6, out of order priorities. You feel disconnected from your identity and your calling. You're always getting sucked into the tyranny of the urgent, not the important. Your life is reactive, not proactive. You're busier than ever before, yet you still feel like you don't have time for what really matters to you in life. Number 7, lack of care for your body. You don't have time for the basics. 8 hours of sleep a night, daily exercise, healthy home-cooked food, minimal stimulants, margin. You gain weight, get sick many times a year, regularly wake up tired, you don't sleep well. You live off what John Mark Comer calls the 4 horsemen of the industrialized apocalypse: caffeine, sugar, processed carbs, and alcohol. Number 8, escapist behaviors. When you're too tired to do what's actually life-giving, we turn to our distraction of choice: overeating, overdrinking, binge-watching shows, browsing social media, surfing the web. Name your preferred cultural narcotic. Number 9, and no shame here, slippage of spiritual disciplines, okay? If you're anything like me, when you get overbusy, the things that are truly life-giving for you are not your go-to. They actually are the first things to go. They're the first things that go out the window. Comer says this, okay? These things that we're talking about would be things like a quiet time in the morning, scripture, prayer, Sabbath, worship on a Sunday. Hey, you guys made it. Good job. A meal with people you care about, and so on. And Comer says this quote kind of takes my breath away. So instead of a life with God, we settle for a life with Netflix and a cheap glass of wine, a very poor substitute. Not because time wasted on entertainment is the great Satan, but because we rarely get done binge watching anything or posting to social media or overeating, whatever, and feel awake and alive from the soul outward, rested, refreshed, and ready for a new day. Whew! And number 10 is isolation. You feel disconnected from God, others, and your own soul. And it's the same with your friends. When you're with them, you're on your phone or a million miles away. Even when you're alone and come face to face with your own soul, you immediately have to run back to the distractions in your life. Okay, how did you score? Was it 5, 6, 10? What I'm trying to illustrate here is that this is the new normal. This is the new normal in the Western world. Reject any shame you're feeling right now. It's just not from God. His love is not based on your performance at all. But it is changing us, and it's not growing love, peace, and joy. It's actually getting in the way. And this is what Pete Cesaro says: you cannot live at warp speed without warping your soul. It is changing us, and these things are unpleasant. Okay. And there's even more at stake here than just how we feel. It's an implication of time. But I'm going to skip that part because I'm going to run out of time. All right, we're all feeling great about ourselves now, right? We're all feeling wonderful about our lives and our world. Okay, I want to talk about what does this have to do with following Jesus, okay? Now, Jesus is just the opposite of this, okay? And everywhere Jesus went, he said, come follow me, or come be my apprentice. That's actually, I hope, what we're trying to do here is be apprentices of Jesus. And there's another invitation that really speaks to this. Jesus said this in Matthew 11, come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Do you feel worn out? Do you feel distracted? Do you feel overburdened? This invitation is from Jesus to you, and it's for me. As I wrote this sermon, the degree of imposter syndrome was through the roof, right? I had to pray, Jesus, help me not be an absolute hypocrite as I preach this sermon, okay? But and I'm going to get to that, but Jesus is like the opposite of this. Jesus is a model of unhurried love. He is totally present, fiercely present with people. You could not hurry Jesus. Like, can you imagine a stressed out Jesus, right? Like, disciple drops the food and he snaps at him. Or like he's having a conversation, but he's on his phone at the same time. Yeah. Or Jesus like gets to the end of a day and he's like, I seriously need a glass of wine right now. Right? We like cannot imagine a stressed out Jesus. He's like the opposite. He's fiercely present. You could not hurry him, right? There was this moment where Lazarus, who's a good friend of his, is going to die, and he receives notification to come quickly. That's what Martha and Mary say. Come quickly because your friend's going to die. And it says, so Jesus waited 2 days and then turned and said, come, let us return, right? Or there's a story where Jesus is teaching. He's in the middle of a sermon like this, and a man falls on his knees in front of him and says, my daughter is going to die if you don't help. And Jesus leaves the sermon, and on the way there, he comes across another person who interrupts him. And it's this woman who's had a chronic health condition for 12 years that's plagued her. It's a beautiful passage where he's so present with her. It's a long conversation, and he's asking her questions. And And I can only just imagine like Jairus, who's on the side, right, waiting, like his daughter's gonna die, and here's Jesus just trying to have a conversation with this older woman. He's so fierce that you could not hurry him. You could not push Jesus somewhere. Half of the stories in the gospel are literal interruptions. Jesus' time was incredibly full. He was in demand, right? But he was never hurried. It means that his schedule was full, but he never came across hurried. How did he accomplish that? I want that. I want to know what the secret of that is. And people will say, especially those that read the life of Jesus, that the secret is in what was said in this passage, the yoke. Take my yoke upon you. What is a yoke? It's his life. We're so prone to believe that Christianity is a set of beliefs, it's a theology, or it's do's and don'ts, it's ethics. But really the way of Jesus is just that. It's a way, it's a lifestyle. And by lifestyle, what I mean is your time, your rhythms, your relationship with people, your schedule, how you spend your money, your relationship with your phone. It's a way of life. And Jesus' life was way different. Way different. First of all, Jesus had margin, right? Jesus had margin. It's said that margin is the difference between our load and our limits, okay? It's the difference between our load and our limits. For most of us, our load is right at our limits. And if there is any margin, we quickly up our load to our limit. A lot of us have a load that is beyond our limits, which is what leads to these unpleasant emotions we're talking about, feeling overwhelmed and stressful. Jesus had margin. He would get away to pray in the morning alone with his Father. He'd go away for weeks at a time to get away from the crowds, or he'd go take a night off somewhere. He would do long meals with friends over wine. He would look into people's eyes. He would nap. There's multiple accounts in the gospel where he's taking a nap, and his disciples think it's totally weird, and they have to wake him up, right? Some of you have never been closer to becoming a disciple of Jesus than right now. I will follow this man that takes naps. He practiced simplicity before it was cool, right? Like just the clothes on his back. He wasn't out like over shopping or tracking his Amazon orders and frustrated because the snow slowed them down, which is something that came out of my mouth this week. It means you live the way Jesus lived. And Dallas Willard says this: there's a really simple question for us to start living in the way of Jesus, and that's asking, how would Jesus live if he were me? How would Jesus live? And this isn't a straightforward translation, right? Jesus was a first century single Jewish man. You might be a 21st century married grad school student female, right? But in any of these situations, what it means is I'm asking, what would it look like? And for that reason, I mean, like a good example is like Jesus didn't have kids. I have 4 kids. I really like to spend time with my kids and I try to spend a lot of time with them because I believe that is of Jesus. That if Jesus had kids, he would absolutely be spending a lot of time with them. That's what we need to do in every area of our lives. All right. Now, a lot of people, we want the things Jesus had. We want his unanxious presence. We read the scriptures and we're like, yes, Jesus the way. Most writers regarding the spiritual disciplines say this: we want the life of Jesus, the effect. We don't want the lifestyle. And it's because the lifestyle is costly and it would cause us to actually have to give up the things that we filled our schedule with. And so what I want to invite you to do is this. The question is how? How do we do this? How do we have a lifestyle that mirrors Jesus? There's a really helpful tool, and it's an old tool that the monastics designed called a rule of life. And the rule of life is simply doing what I said. You go through each area of your life and you ask yourself, what is most important that I need to have daily, weekly, monthly? There's this whole idea that it's caught fire in the self-help world called a fixed hour schedule, but that's the idea. It's not new at all. And a rule of life specifically helps you go through and measure what are the things that are life-giving that I need, and what are the things that are life-depleting they're taking from me, and I need to get those out of my life. And you write it down, and then you try to, with grace for yourself, do it. Stick to it. So there's a tool by Bridgetown Church that we're actually going to throw up on the website. It's already there. It's called, it's just Rule of Life Worksheet that Bridgetown, who we really like, developed, but it can help you do that. There's also some wonderful sermons on this as well, but all it's going to do is help you go through these areas of life, right? My body, what do I need? Rest and play and delight, what do I need, right? My spirit, knowing Jesus, right? How do I abide in him? How do I have a sense of his presence? How do I know him as if we really had a relationship? and you do that, okay? Now, some of you are going to geek out on this, and you're going to go way too far. You're literally going to, load limits. You're going to be like, I'm going to do everything, right? And the idea is be really simple about it and do less. Create margin. And in order to do this, I think this is one of the biggest hangups, is saying no. You're going to have to say no to good things in your life in order to have the best things of life. Okay, in order to have the things that actually give you love, joy, and peace. Can I just be honest? I had to do that this week. When I was preaching this and I was going through all my imposter syndrome and Jesus, don't strike me dead for preaching this sermon because I'm in the opposite place. I'm feeling overloaded. I'm feeling overburdened. I had to go back and I had to cut some things out of my life. What's really hard about that is I'm a counselor and I had to email people and I had to say, hey, I'm so sorry, but I cannot meet with you right now, which was really hard for me. I really care about those people genuinely. And it's also really not popular to do that, okay? I didn't get points for that, all right? But when I did this and I looked at my schedule and how I felt and the hurry sickness symptoms that we went through, I had to say, I am too overloaded right now to have a vibrant relationship with Jesus, to be a good father and husband. And so I'm working on this too with you. I hope you'll join me. And what I'm asking you to do is kind of outside this room, right? It would take time. And I feel really it feels really counterintuitive. Hey, I'm going to give you something to do, okay? In response to this sermon about how you do too much. But I want to encourage you. It's worth it. And specifically what it will lead to is relief. It will unburden you. And it's the invitation of Jesus to examine our lives and ask, how would Jesus live if he were me? If he were me. Now, some of you heard the word rules, or you hear the structure of it, and you're like, kill me. And you're right, you're not a structure person at all, okay? You're free-flowing, you're a wave. I love you people. I want to tell you, you heard the word rule, and you're like, yeah, but rule just means structure, and it really means the word trellis. Now, if you think of a vine, okay, you think of a grapevine, what's underneath any grapevine that's flourishing? It's a trellis, it's a structure. And the truth is that if we don't have any intentionality around our lives, structure, planning of what we're going to do in choosing these things, other things will choose it for us. A vine without a trellis will die. And a life without intentionality, a spiritual life will be gone. Your spiritual life will get pushed out, and the people even around you, you won't be looking into their eyes. You and me will be looking into our phones. So that's what I'm encouraging you to and telling you. The whole idea is to have some intentionality so that you're not in this constant state of doing but not changing, of busy but disconnected from God. That's what a rule of life is all about. I have some people in my life who actually celebrate when I say no to them, and I love it. Zach Hendricks is one of them. He asks me to do things occasionally, and I often have to say no, and I always feel bad, right? I do 4 apologies. I'm so sorry. I really want to, but I can't. And he immediately is really excited that I said no, and it's really confusing for me, but I love that about him. He does it because he knows that that's a good thing. It's a good thing to say no, and I just want to be that person in your life that would be really excited if you went through a process of going through good things in your life and saying no so that you can have the best and so that you can have love, joy, peace, and abide in Jesus. So that's the invitation. And Jesus says it. He says actually, what good is it? What good is it to gain everything in life but forfeit your soul? Instead, his invitation is, come to me, take on my lifestyle, and what? You will have rest for your souls. I want to be the first one to do that. So I'd encourage you, do it. This week. The link's up there. It's really easy. Don't overthink it. Do it with your DNA group. Do it with your spouse. Do it with your family or do it alone. But there's so much more I could say here that I can't about spiritual disciplines. The practices of Jesus that are actually designed to bring about love, joy, and peace. Prayer is meant to be that. Scripture is meant to be that. Fasting is meant to be that. Sabbath is meant to be that. You could all be there, and they all are their own books and sermons, and I can't go there. But as you start 2022, I just want to invite you to reorganize your life, not for the purpose of self-actualization or crushing the sales goals or limits. I'm going to push the limits beyond what they've ever. I want to invite you to do the opposite, to create margin and space in order to do the way of Jesus so that you could have rest for your souls. I'm going to pray. Yeah, Jesus, I pray for us that we would experience that rest, that we would take upon your lifestyle, not just your words, not just like you or admire you, but want to be apprentices of you. yeah, Jesus, would you lead us and lead me in that? And Jesus, would you give us rest as we reflect on what we want to be true of us? We love you. Pray this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Josh. It's a good word, man.